Okay, cool. So welcome everyone to our second podcast. This is part of our series in creating awareness for experience design. My name is Tim, and today I have my super intelligent colleague and friend, Karin Janse van Rensberg, speaking with us today to discuss the second part of our working definition of XD. So hi, Karin, how are you today?
I'm great. Thanks, Tim. Thanks for having me today.
I'm so excited to have a chat with you around our working definition on experience design. So before we begin, I would like to just give our working definition, and that is the orchestration of interactions with experience elements that involve the human perspective at every stage, resulting in conscious participation, which creates desired results that ripen over time. So, Karin, let's begin with the fun stuff. Can you recall one of your most memorable and exciting experiences? And we'll start to chat on that.
Oh, yes. So one of the things that really stood out for me from very good memories was the time that I visited the UK, the very first time that I actually visited any country outside South Africa. And as part of that process, we had to apply for visas. And that was a very interesting experience. Like, I've never applied for a visa before. So it was the first time really understanding what are the things that they need from us. And we also, as part of that, had to schedule some interviews. So they call it an interview, but it really is just to check your biometrics, check that you have enough money, those kind of things. So we had to get a few documents ready. And we made the appointments to go to the embassies and hand in our passports and everything. And on this particular day, we were really, really early. So we also scheduled them very early in the morning so that we could literally go just before we had to start working. And we were so early that the embassy hadn't opened yet. And we were like looking at some areas where we can just sit and wait. And there was this restaurant that was already open, and we ended up having breakfast there.
Oh, awesome.
So very, very cool. So something that was really cool about the restaurant, it was like obviously it looked so pretty on the inside. But when we got there, I realized that it was a vegan restaurant as well. And with me being vegetarian, it was like bliss, because I literally didn't have to scan the menu and see what I liked, and I didn't have to look at dishes that I really liked and ask the waiters to like remove the meat and stuff. So it was really, really exciting. And then when we eventually got the food, it was so amazing. I think I had like a pineapple juice or a granadella juice. It was a fruit juice, and it was one of the best I've had ever. And yeah, it was like such a great introduction before going overseas and having that first international experience.
I love how that experience is part of your overseas experience. It plays a role in the full macro experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I think also the highlight for me was really also not having to like pick and choose through the menu.
Yeah.
It was like such an airy kind of feeling, like you felt so light. And even though it was still like a month or two before we could go on holiday, I was like in a proper holiday mood after that meal. So yeah. It actually made me feel like I wanted to travel the world for life, like as a job, because if I had to apply for visas and I could have breakfast like this every time I'm applying for a visa, like sign me up. I would definitely do that. So it was really exciting.
Well, you and I both love food. I know that much. So, this is a very interesting story, because this reminds me of the concept of like reflection. So I wanted to touch on the orchestration, interaction with the experience elements, but your memory is really more focused around anticipation, participation, and reflection. So just a side note, this kind of experience which we're going through now is very much an unplanned experience. And this is a great example of how, as the designer of the experience, you cannot always be in control of the outcome, and that it is important to let the participant be a part of and shape the experience. And I think that's what we're also doing now. So if I look at anticipation, participation, and reflection, so anticipation is around the thoughts, feelings, emotions, and expectations. So all of these thought processes and decisions represent interactions between you and the elements of the experience. So for example, you wanted to go for breakfast with friends, and where you go and what is served is less important. So it's more about what you anticipated through this experience. So you didn't anticipate to go for breakfast, but you landed up going for breakfast, and you landed up having this amazing breakfast, and it became a part of your full experience and journey. So with regards to the anticipation, how did you feel about the anticipation in your experience?
So before we had breakfast, just the anticipation of going for the interviews were quite stressful for me actually, because I didn't know what to expect once I got there. I didn't understand the process because they mention it that it is an interview. They don't say that it's a biometric test or like just checking your documents and stuff. So I was very nervous in the beginning. And then, like I mentioned, we went very early in the morning. So I still had to go to my job afterwards. So I was also feeling like I was very much pressed for time.
Okay,
So yeah, but then having that energy from the restaurants and having the breakfast, that was really like, it just put me at ease and it made me feel free, actually free from the stresses of the interview. It really like made me feel in a positive environment.
Well, that's exactly kind of what we spoke about with Craig in the last podcast. He went into almost a sense of flow where, you have a clear goal, you lose track of time, things around you become less, you become less aware of the things around you, and you just enjoy the moment that you are in. Really nice, and I like how, within your experience, you were quite anxious by what you were about to do, and something unplanned happened and became part of the experience but put you at ease. That's very, very refreshing to hear.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the second part is participation. So how those thoughts, feelings, emotions, and expectations changed when you started participating in the actual events. So, like you mentioned, you were quite anxious to start the whole process. You had to go to work afterwards, but then this breakfast completely diffused you. And when you went to participate in the actual interviews, how did you feel after the breakfast? Were you less anxious? Were you more relaxed?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was actually looking forward to the holiday at this point. I was like, I feel like it's summer, it's really nice and sunny outside. The breakfast was amazing. I had such a cool experience with Nick, my partner. And just going for the interview, I felt like this is just another thing that I need to get ticked off to get that visa and then, go on holiday. So I was definitely a lot more relaxed and almost carefree in the sense that I didn't really care about the outcome of it. I was like, I have everything in place. I'm ready to apply for this visa, ready to go for the interview. So it was really almost putting things in perspective, as in this is just a small step in my big experience. So yeah, it definitely did help, just calm the emotions a bit.
Yeah. And that's the great thing about the participation. So, you can transition from anticipation into participation, and with a healthy, positive outlook from the anticipation phase, you go into the phase a lot more carefree, like you said, and relaxed, and it produces more positive feelings about the overall experience and what you are going to experience. And from the start, you said like this is part of this whole breakfast, and this application process is part of the bigger experience, which was also the holiday.
Yes.
And yeah, so I like how it's shaping out. It's very, very nice. And then the last one is reflection. So looking back to the day and how great it was and what stood out the most. The reflection phase of the experience and your perceived results and the participation phase usually have a big influence of your perceived outcome of the overall experience. And I think things that we've touched on and spoken about, overall, it became a very great experience. Is that something that you can agree with?
Oh, yes, absolutely. To be honest with you, I wouldn't mind booking the next visa and the next visa and the next visa and actually start planning these breakfasts into my appointments and make sure that I still have that experience. So yeah, definitely overall good. In fact, it was so awesome that I actually took pictures of the restaurant and I posted it on Instagram that day. So I actually shared it with friends afterwards as well. I was so excited about it. So yeah, that was definitely one of the good things that came out of that entire experience.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely going to look them up and then post them on this podcast if that's okay with you.
Absolutely, you're more than welcome.
Awesome. Yeah, so this brings me to the experience types, and I think this is something we would like to touch on in our next podcast and wrap up the series nicely with our expert Nails Shah. And the experience types talks about prosaic memories, mindful, meaningful, transformational, and all of these elements which you experienced through your experience also help determine what experience type this was. So on that note, I would like to end off the session by saying thank you so much for spending the time, having a chat with us about your experience and telling us about your anticipation, your participation, and giving us the opportunity to reflect and look back. And I can see how your experience exhibited the different characteristics and elements of experience design, which is awesome.
Very cool. Thanks. And I learned a lot from this as well. So this is very cool. Thanks, Tim.
Cool, pleasure. Cool, thanks, Karin. And we hope to chat soon.